following on the heels of two gigantic #1 Billboard hits in 1985. Today's featured song, written by two iconic synth rock pioneers, legends. This song was in line to make it 3 #1s in a row. Unprecedented. But would it happen? Ambitious and anthemic, this song boasts some highly intelligent lyrics that really take quite a few listens to unriddle. Came from a record that was named after a strange TV movie with a music video that defined the 80s. Truly one of the most underappreciated songs of the neon decade, in my opinion, one of the best. So good, a cult movie based an entire sequence off of the song and filmed it without knowing if they'd even get the song rights. We solve this mysterious 80s song riddle coming up next. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you've ever found solace in a game of Pong, or tried at least 1,000 times to beat Mike Tyson in Punch-Out, depending on what generation you came from or come from, you're going to dig this channel. Pure music nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below right now. Check the box so you always get our latest interviews and stories. We also have a Patreon. You're going to want to check that out. We just actually put up a full unreleased documentary on Brian Wilson up there. Great stuff. I know you'll enjoy it. So it's time for another edition of one of my favorite shows we do on here, #1 in Our Hearts. This is the show that honors songs that were so undeniably great. They should have been #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. But for whatever reason, radio play, lack of marketing, label support, just sheer stupidity, song came up short. Today, we're giving you the story behind one of my favorite songs from the 80s, Head Over Heels by Tears for Fears. This song, of course, from Tears for Fears' seminal 1985 #1 album, Songs from the Big Chair. For my money, it actually might be their greatest song. Of all the synth pop sensations to come out of the second British invasion, Tears for Fears are one of the few left standing all these years later. Over the course of the past 40 years, there may have only been 7 studio albums under the Tears for Fears banner, but the quality is unprecedented. It's cut above the rest, and it's safe to say that the iconic duo of Roland Orzabal and Curt Smith have risen to become global superstars. With the recent release of their latest record, The Tipping Point, gotta tell you, brilliant modern offering. It's clear that these two statesmen of synthesized rock, they've transcended the decade that they towered over. Their voice today is just as critical as it has ever been. So with today's episode, I want to honor that legacy, especially since Head Over Heels is really my favorite song from their brilliant catalog. Just for a quick primer, Smith and Orzabal both grew up in Bath, England, and they became friends in their early teen years. Both of the boys came from broken homes, with Curt Smith flirting with juvenile delinquency as a result. Roland, however, turned to books to alleviate his trauma. At 17, he discovered psychologist Arthur Janov's primal scream therapy. Orzabal turned Smith on to Janov as well, and that would become really a common thematic element early on. We've talked about it in our past videos on Tears for Fears. They formed a ska revival band called The Graduate in the late 70s, but that dissolved in the early 80s. And from there, the two formed Tears for Fears. That happened in 1981. The name inspired by their reading in Janov's book, Prisoner of Pain. The pair then signed with Phonogram Records and added keyboardist Ian Stanley and drummer Manny Elias to the lineup. Tears for Fears' debut single, Suffer the Children, that was released in the UK in November of 1981. That was followed by their first edition of Hell Shelter, March of 1982. Neither release was very successful. However, the band achieved success with their third single, Mad World. That rose to #3 in the UK. Their first album, the brilliant album The Hurting, that was released in March of '83. I gotta tell you, when I first heard their debut, I was forever changed. Who were these guys? They didn't look anything like Duran Duran or Wham. Instead, they looked like they were from a rough working class neighborhood. which I immediately understood. Felt like Curt and Roland, they understood me. I think that you probably felt they understood you. They wrote and performed songs that weren't only the backbone of my coming-of-age years, but they were the antidote to my fears. Cathartic, empathetic, they wrote with an almost flawless comprehension of suffering and the human condition. I mean, think about it. They described the pain and the anguish of growing up and the anxiety that many of us were feeling in detail, in lockstep, as we were really experiencing it. And the early adopters in the UK were quick to pick up on this too. The Hurting actually peaked at number 1 the same month it was released in March of '83. And then 2 more singles reached the top 5 there in the UK. Change came in at number 4. And then a reissued Pell Shelter reached number 5. Back in the States, at least collectively, we hadn't caught on to the phenomenon yet. And Change was actually the only Hot 100 charting single from this album here in the US, only coming in at number 73 at that. But by their next album, there's no doubt that we would catch the vision in America of Tears for Fears. Whereas The Hurting was a deep study of the withering pain that Roland and Curt had experienced growing up, and heavily influenced by Arthur Janov. Songs from the Big Chair seemed to be about the confusing yet recurrent nature of healing. The number 1 hit, Shout, was like a link between the 2 albums. Although, as Roland has pointed out in interviews for this, Shout is more about protest and primal scream therapy. There's still definitely a connection there, though. Now, as we continue to break down the song, I do want to recognize real quickly our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear, the glasses that I always wear here. Right now, you can get a complete pair of Zenni glasses starting at just $6.95. I mean, the average pair of frames at Zenni is over 80% off regular retail prices. You choose the style, the color, and the shape, and you see how you look before you buy. Check it out today at our info button right here or at the link below. Click on our link to get the best deal. In 1985, reflecting on the band's early evolution, Roland said, "There's been 2 distinct stages in Tears for Fears history so far. Both albums, The Hurting, in which you could say we laid ourselves bare. We made a very fragile album, which was full of adolescent kind of emotions that most people try to forget and sweep under the carpet. With Songs from the Big Chair, it was time to put our clothes on and face the world. Fully dressed, Tears for Fears stepped into the American spotlight in a very big way. Songs from the Big Chair is indisputably a key album from the 80s, one of the best. This sophomore collection made their initial burst to glory as impressive as it was. Kind of seemed like a dress rehearsal for their coming out party. Curt called Big Chair an attempt to be less insular. We were very introverted on The Hurting. It was a very dark album. We found the need to be more outgoing on The Big Chair, and the use of big guitars and the things that we shied away from before allowed us to do that. These guys had 3 masterpieces in a row, in my opinion. Songs from the Big Chair, that was named after a 1976 2-part miniseries called Sybil that starred Sally Field as a woman suffering from multiple personality disorder. Said Curt Smith about it, "The idea for the title is from a film called Sybil, which is about a girl with 14 different personalities. And her analyst has this very large chair that when she regresses back to certain personalities, she always has to sit in. It's the place where she feels comfortable, not scared of anyone or not frightened about what the outside world thinks of her."
Sybil can't say yes. Vanessa, you go. We like music.
The pair liked the image that this conjured up, so they decided to use the name for the B-side of Shout. And when it came time to name the album, they decided to call it Songs from the Big Chair, since they had felt the songs all had different personalities. Although the release order would differ significantly in the UK than in the US, Everybody Wants to Rule the World was the album's first single. It was then followed by Shout, Head Over Heels, and then Mother's Talk. These are the things I can do without. In the UK, I believe, that would also be added to the mix. Great song. Mother's Talk would be the least commercially successful in the States. It only reached number 27, but still a hit. However, the other 3 US releases would all dominate the Hot 100. 2 number 1s and a number 3. And Songs from the Big Chair climbed to the top of the Billboard Albums chart, like I said. It enjoyed a 5-week stay there. In the UK, the record reached number 2, and it spent 81 weeks in the top 75. Songs from the Big Chair would go on to sell more than 10 million copies worldwide. Songs from the Big Chair is an unquestioned masterpiece, really. And TFF were the unquestioned kings of 1985, in my view. So let's take a closer look at Big Chair's third U.S. act in the U.S., Head Over Heels. Roland described Head Over Heels as basically a romantic love song and one of the most simple tracks that Tears for Fears have ever recorded. It is a romance song that goes a bit perverse at the end, end of quote. Head Over Heels is definitely a big-time ballad, only with a Tears for Fears twist. Deep, thoughtful, penetrating lyrics all mixed into an epic, uplifting soundscape. Singing along with this one, you always come away feeling like you're on top of the world, at least I do, even if the lyrics aren't quite so happy-go-lucky. The song features Roland on lead vocals, with Curt Smith coming in with backing vocal contributions. It's actually the only track on Big Chair to feature Curt as a co-writer. For my money, the juxtaposition of Roland and Curt's voices on the track, it's a highlight of the 80s. Head Over Heels grew out of, or actually along with, Broken, a couple of years prior in 1982. That year, Tears for Fears released Broken as a B-side to their single Pale Shelter, actually. Afterwards, it became a go-to track in their live performances. Broken approached prog rock status in its complexity, and in its mix contained a distinctive synthesized piano motif that you might recognize. It's not surprising then that the two songs would be closely connected ever after. In fact, Broken, Head Over Heels, and Broken Reprise would all form a 3-part suite that would be played that way in their live concert performances. And this sequence would also carry over to the final track listing of the Big Chair LP. If you're interested in an alternate universe backstory to this song, kidding, you got to check out Jimmy Fallon and Kevin Bacon's reimagined version from The Tonight Show. It's so good. It's part of Fallon's First Drafts of Rock series. In this version of the 80s new wave classic, Fallon and Bacon have fun taking a bit of a departure from the original line, "I wanted to be with you alone and talk about the weather." What actually follows is a song about Tears for Fears selling themselves as your go-to weatherman. There's rain up in Seattle, so if you're going out. Fallon sings, "For the weather, you can call Tears for Fears and we'll check the radar." And then Bacon adds weather lesson gems like, "Cold air is rising, forming cumulus clouds." Meanwhile, you can catch glimpses of the weather forecast on the screen behind him. My personal favorite, though, is the da-da Doppler bit. Really funny stuff. But all joking aside, Head Over Heels, of course written by Tears for Fears, you know that it's a far cry from a bubblegum pop ballad. Lyrically, Head Over Heels has Roland's protagonist painfully attracted to a girl with whom he pleads, "Don't take my heart, don't break my heart." The text showcases lines that are both memorable and multi-layered. From "with one foot in the past, now just how long will it last?" to "it's hard to be a man when there's a gun in your hand." Brilliant lyrics. It's hard to be a man when there's a lot to unpack here. Let's try to do it. This is no straight up run-of-the-mill love song. It's filled with some really serious relationship dysfunction. So in my personal view, the song, it's about this guy's infatuation with this girl. I mean, it's intense. He's head over heels, but he can't get close to her beyond his physical attraction. He's trying to move past infatuation, that much is clear, into love and understanding. And in his attempt to get closer to her, he senses his own immaturity and his own lack of confidence. And in this process, he senses her flaws, hence the lyric about the child in her face. But he's so lost in admiration, he feels like he's losing control, and then he's wasting his time and his affection. But within her, she keeps her distance. Something from her past is blocking him from, getting closer. So it's really frustrating. One of the key lyrics that's very telling is in the second verse. We talked about it before. It's hard to be a man when there's a gun in your hand. And I believe it's his confusion of what it means to be a real man. Not the man that, society or even his own father has put upon him to be. I think the gun metaphor means power. The gun is supposed to make him tough. Yet in his mind's eye, he's sensitive. He wants to connect with this girl in a natural way, not through a power trip or through manipulation, through games. But he's somewhat tainted by his past. He has father issues. He wants to connect on an emotional level, but is unsure of how to do it. But the end of the song, that's the most compelling when he says, in my mind's eye, one little boy, one little man. Funny how time flies. This lyric is also used in the aforementioned Broken. But at the end of Broken, it says, one little boy, anger one little man. And that's a serious clue to the meaning behind the song. He's in fact broken from his past. His relationship with this woman isn't working because he's attracted to women who are emotionally detached and broken. And it kind of goes back to his own father, I think. In his mind's eye, this current relationship, it mirrors his past. It mirrors his relationships, like with his father. And the time flies part, that has to do with the fact that he one day wakes up and realizes he's lived the same experience over and over again. He's experienced the same relationship over and over again. And it all really goes back to his childhood and his own dysfunction with his father. That's my interpretation of it. I don't want to play psychologist, but it kind of goes into the whole Janov and the past with their childhood and those types of things. So what do you think? I'd definitely like to get your thoughts on this one. Heard various interpretations through the years, and I think this would make a really great discussion below. So, class is in session. Give me your take in the comments below, and we can explore it further. Okay, so the music video for Head Over Heels, that's directed by Nigel Dick. It swerves back into the realm of the absurd. Filmed at Emmanuel College Library in Toronto, Canada, the video is a comical and quizzical story of Roland falling in love in a library with a stone-faced librarian, played by model Joan Densmore. According to Roland, he actually turned down the director's original casting choice because she seemed too nice. And when he heard that Densmore might be difficult to work with, his mind was made up. She was going to be perfect for what he was trying to do here. Explaining the storyline, Roland said, it was based in a municipal library, and I'm totally besotted with the librarian. Yeah, it's a bit cliche, but we did it well. She's very aloof, stern, and school mistressy. And I keep getting out loads of books as an excuse just to see her. Now, as the video progresses, we are introduced to an eclectic cast of characters. There's drummer Manny Elias as a bearded rabbi. keyboardist Ian Stanley as a biker, and Curt Smith playing the role of a janitor. Additionally, there's also Harvey the chimpanzee. Shenanigans ensue as they always do in 80s videos, and Roland tries to win over Joan. From start to finish, the video is filled with an odd collection of visuals. An incoming keyboard, a gas mask, a miniature orchestra, no-look book catching, monkey kisses, and then Roland floating up to the second floor and back down for really no apparent reason. It's completely absurd, like most videos in the 80s. The more I watch, the more I love it. Of course, there's also an homage to the Ghostbusters library scene when Orzabal opens a card catalog. The drawer, and cards go flying everywhere. After cutting to the band performing on stage, the video wraps up with Roland and the librarian as an old married couple. And this gives us a lot of insight. Said Roland about it, the song ends with the words, "In my mind's eye, one little boy, one little man, funny how time flies." The punchline? Being that we eventually end up with each other. We get married and live happily ever after. Well, sort of happy. We're old, and we don't look particularly happy. But seriously, if you're perplexed by the video's randomness, don't worry. There's a Cliff Notes edition you can watch. 2008, the literal video version showed up on YouTube with dubbed lyrics poking fun at the video's visuals. This precursor to bad lip readings gives you a comical play-by-play breakdown. It's definitely worth a watch. Check it out. I'll link to it below. In the US, Head Over Heels entered the Hot 100 at number 49 and it eventually climbed to number 3, falling just short of a three-peat bid of number 1 hits. After Everybody Wants to Rule the World and Shout both hit number 1. It was held out of the top spot by Jan Hammer's Miami Vice theme at number 1 and Stevie Wonder's Part-Time Lover at number 2. Man, when I was a little kid, I was willing it to number 1. It would have been so cool if it had made up those last 2 spots. 3 straight number 1 singles, that would have been epic. And really, it deserved number 1. Now, elsewhere in the US, Head Over Heels reached number 3 on the Cashbox chart, number 7 on the Billboard's Top Rock Tracks, and also went to number 5 on the AC charts, a triple threat there. Internationally, went to number 21 in Australia, number 18 in Belgium, number 12 in New Zealand and the UK, number 11 in Canada, and went to number 5 in Ireland. Since then, Head Over Heels has appeared in several movies and TV shows, including Fringe,
Something happens and I'm head over heels.
Everybody Hates Chris,
I'm lost in admiration, dude, I need you this much.
Degrassi, The Next Generation, Age 20, Just Add Water, Orphan Black, The Late Bloomer, Glow, The Frontrunner, Riverdale, and Psych, that guest starred Curt Smith.
Kurt's really losing it.
A modified version of Head Over Heels was also featured, of course, in the cult classic, the 2001 movie Donnie Darko, one of my favorites. Starred Jake Gyllenhaal and Drew Barrymore, amongst others. During a vital scene early on in the movie, the camera flies around the school, introducing us to the movie's cast of main characters. This is while Head Over Heels plays from start to finish. There's no dialogue in any of it. And really, it's just an electrifying piece of filmography. And actually, according to director Richard Kelly, the whole montage was written and choreographed specifically with Head Over Heels in mind. I mean, they even went forward shooting all of this before they'd secured the rights to the song. This really pissed off the production manager and also the line manager, who saw it as an indulgent music video sequence. But when they saw the finished product, they admitted that they were dead wrong. According to Curt Smith, it was actually a personal request from Drew Barrymore that secured the rights to this song. Incidentally, Donnie Darko also features another Tears for Fears song, this time a cover of Mad World by Gary Jules at the close of the movie. Head Over Over Heels has also been covered by Hoobastank, Def Cab for Cutie, Katy Perry, and Yacht Rock Review. So this was my favorite TFF song growing up, as I said before. So catchy, so amazing. I remember listening to it on my Walkman on the way to school as a kid. One day I got a little too into the song and I realized that the entire bus was staring at me all at the same time. I was just mouthing the lyrics in my mind, but in reality I was singing it to the top of my lungs. With Tears for Fears, it kind of comes with the territory. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Leave us a comment about Tears for Fears and Head Over Heels. What do you remember about this song? Tell us in the comments below. What do you think about the way they used it in Donnie Darko? What do you think about Songs from the Big Chair? I mean, it's a brilliant masterpiece. Every single song on this album is incredible. Let's have a discussion about some of the other songs. The Working Hour is one of my favorites as well. If you like our Tears for Fears stuff, we got plenty other episodes. Check those out. Also, make sure to subscribe below so you can be part of our community. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.